Karen Reed and John O'Keefe shared a complex relationship that began in their 20s and rekindled during COVID. O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, had taken custody of his niece and nephew after the deaths of their parents, and Karen Reed frequently stayed at his Canton home assisting with their care. Friends and family initially saw them as a loving couple, but tensions reportedly grew over time. O'Keefe's niece and nephew described arguments between the couple, and John and Karen were having discussions about the state of their relationship. On the night of January 28, 2022, the couple went out with friends, visiting two local bars before John O'Keefe decided to attend a party at a fellow officer Brian Albert's home. Karen dropped him off and returned back to John's home. In the early hours of January 29th, Karen attempted to contact John several times, making dozens of calls and leaving several voicemails, some of which
You are using me right now. You're other girl.
Were angry and accusatory. Later that morning, John was found unresponsive in the snow outside of Brian Albert's home, leading to Karen's arrest and murder charges. Tonight, we are live from the courthouse with all the latest as the retrial of the century continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments and our continued in-depth coverage of the Karen Reed retrial. You know, the relationship between John O'Keefe and Karen Reed was unique in many respects. They met first in their 20s and they reconnected during COVID, which is an interesting time, right? The world is different. You're not going out. You're spending a lot of time at home, isolated from the rest of society and normal business. Now, obviously, John O'Keefe as a police officer was still working, but it made things, I think, a little different in their relationship. And I think all of that may have added to some of the introspection that they had about their relationship and where it was going and how it was developing in the years since COVID, right? So, the day that John O'Keefe died, or his last day, and he was found the following morning, there was an argument. And the argument, when you think about it, was kind of silly. It was about Dunkin Donuts. A Dunkin Donuts argument that he had been angry with Karen Reed for getting Dunkin Donuts for the kids in the morning, his niece and nephew, who he's been raising for years, right? So when you look at the big picture of things, right, it's not that serious. But it seems what it did is it sort of set off a deeper problems that they may have had. And then the problems were where they were in their lives, what they wanted from their lives, and the fact that John is a single parent. And that is, when you're a single parent, that is your first and most important responsibility. It just is. There's no way around it. Like, if you're a parent, you're at home, you know. And when you're married, yeah, you take care of your relationship, but something's going on with the kids, you're always taking your life and your lives together and kind of adjusting them based upon the needs of the children. That's just the way parenting is. And I think that was part of the stress here in this relationship. She has an undefined role as the girlfriend of someone who has these children, but then they were spending so much time together at home during COVID. What exactly was going on there? But that night, what we know, and we see the video, that they are hugging at the bar when she comes out and meets him at C.F. McCarthy's in downtown Canton. Like, in public, everything seems very, it's like a normal night. Yeah, we were having this ongoing discussion and text messages, et cetera, and all these other issues, but in public, in front of everyone else and with one another, things seemed good as they're hugging. So then the question really becomes, from that point, from C.F. McCarthy's to the waterfall to in the car in the quick few-minute drive from the bars downtown Canton to 34 Fairview, Karen and John, were they angry with one another at that moment, which ends up being their last moments together? Was it Was it anger? Was that the emotion that was overriding that time when they're in front of 34 Fairview and Karen and John are together in the car and then John gets out of the car? Is it anger? It's an important question. It's very important for prosecutors especially. Okay, so we're going to talk about that tonight, but we've got a lot more to talk about because every day inside the courtroom there are big moments, and every night we have Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson live from Dedham, where he'll be singing in the, well, it's interesting, you've got the umbrella, Matt, and my first question for you is about the weather. The weather outside the courthouse and the weather reports inside the courtroom.
You're exactly right. So we have a forecast of scattered showers this week in the Commonwealth, and, you know, it got spicy inside the courtroom. It's a very different trial, 100% chance of that this year in the retrial with a meteorologist on the stand. Let's take you inside the courtroom today with meteorologist, long time in the Commonwealth area. This is Robert Gilman, who was on the stand, really talking about the conditions of the weather and the blizzard of January 2022. Particularly the 28th and the 29th when this incident took place. He was talking about nearly 2 feet of snow gathered by the evening hours of the 29th, leading up to 7:45 in the evening. But in the morning hours, only 3 to 4 inches of snow accumulated in the Dedham area. But get this, here's the important part. The ground, it was frozen. Take a listen.
The ground was frozen. The soil was frozen, and the surface of the ground was frozen. And it would have made the ground impenetrable.
This witness, new to the Commonwealth's case in chief this year. Again, there was a lot of arguments about that particular statement, whether or not he was going to be allowed to say that the ground was frozen. Well, at the end of the day, Vinnie, it's important for the state's case, and there was no objection by the defense today.
Yeah, and I get it, right? So the snow is frozen. John O'Keefe, if he gets hit by the car and falls back and his head hits the ground, it could cause these injuries. And I think, you know, you think about a blizzard coming in, I think your common sense is going to say, yeah, it's probably cold out, so the ground probably is frozen, but you need to establish all the facts in the courtroom. Interesting about the snow, I don't know how many people realize that it was that big of a storm, but that snow had more of an impact, I think, on the investigation than what happened in front of the house to John O'Keefe, because around 12:30 or so, there's very little snow on the ground. And I don't know if there was enough snow at that moment for tire tracks to be left behind, because I've heard mixed testimony from witnesses about that. And now you've got the meteorologist talking about I think it's less than ½ an inch of snow around that time.
Yeah, he was talking about, he used very meteorological terms. He said it was enough dusting of snow to track a cat.
Track a cat, okay. And the one thing I know is that sometimes the snow sticks first on the grass and then sticks second on the pavement. That's just my own personal observations, but I'm not a meteorologist, folks. Okay, now let's talk about another big issue. And this has been mind-boggling for me because I know the world we live in. Almost every, I don't know what the percentage is of people who have Ring or Arlo security cameras on their doorbell, on their front yard. It's so inexpensive these days. We can watch the videos on our phones. And now we find out that there was a camera across the street.
Yeah, this was a huge bombshell today, and it was brought out by the defense team. I mean, that's probably the #1 question I get in covering this case in the first trial and the retrial, because we've been to 34 Fairview, and was there anyone in the neighborhood that had any sort of Ring or security cameras? It turns out there was, but the video was never collected. It was actually located a camera on the porch across the street at 23 Fairview, or 42 Fairview, rather. And here's what was said about it in court today. Take a listen.
Do you believe that it would have been best practices to go ahead and secure that footage so we don't have to take anybody's word for it? We could actually look at the footage ourselves.
I didn't do that.
You now know that that footage is gone. It's overwritten.
I would assume so. I'm not familiar with how long Arlo keeps footage.
In your mind, why didn't you go seek footage from that camera?
In my mind,
Yes.
because I knew it wouldn't have captured anything. He didn't have them on the street because it's a busy street and the batteries would die, and and who knows, very quickly if they captured the street.
So the house belonged to a deputy chief with Canton Police, actually Gallagher's boss. So this was really fascinating to hear that there were cameras, it wasn't logged. Then again, he didn't do a report himself, but it was never mentioned before, and now there's no video.
Okay, and he's saying this is not a doorbell camera, this is just a regular security camera, or was that not even clarified in court?
Wasn't really clarified in court what this particular witness was trying to describe. He has seen the screenshots from other days when he's picked up packages for his boss, and he said that you can only see the lawn and the porch area. But again, we'll never know because the video was recorded over, and we just have to take these witnesses' word for it.
Okay, and I think we're looking at it right now on the screen. It looks like it's above the door. It is pointed to a certain extent down. What I'm just wondering, though, is, okay, it's above the door, so every time he changes the battery, he's got to get the ladder out, I guess. If it's a battery operated and it's not wired for power, which seemed to be the reason why they didn't want to capture the street. That's what I just heard. Okay, interesting. Something else extremely interesting, another video. This is this dash cam video of Karen Reed's SUV and the back of the SUV capturing the taillight?
Yeah, and this is video that we've seen before. It was introduced during trial number 1, and it's actually of the state troopers doing a door knock, a welfare check for John O'Keefe's niece and nephew at Meadows Avenue where he lived. And they didn't realize that they had this video, but it is the dash cam from the cruiser, and they drive right up to where Karen Reed's SUV is parked in the driveway. And then, I know that the think tank is going to do a deep dive on this tonight, but the big question is whether or not that's snow packed in or if that's actually the taillight missing altogether. Well, later today, outside of the courthouse, I spoke with Bill Reed, Karen Reed's father, because, again, he saw it up close and personal after all of this happened because he went to Meadows with his daughter. I asked him about what he thinks that he saw. Take a listen. Was it missing or covered in snow?
It was a crack, and it was covered in snow. And another good day. I mean, you think about what you just heard at the tail end of that, at the car was secured in the Sally Port. Memory serves me well at 5:35, and it was requested by Lieutenant O'Hara it'd be helpful if we had a picture of the taillight assembly that we're looking for. And the response was, if I've heard it correctly in there, was it's en route. And you know what's going on. I'm going home.
Okay, so he still remains on the witness list. No idea if he's going to be called or when. We're not privy to who they're going to call each and every day, but the Commonwealth says that they're on track and they're ahead of schedule. They ended court early today. As for the defendant herself, Karen Reed, again, she's the only one that's not under a gag order, working with the defense team. All the attorneys are, including the prosecutor. But she had no comment today or yesterday, and that's been a big change from her speaking to the media every single day.
Yeah, well, it could turn into another clip inside the courtroom, right? That's why she may not be talking. Let me ask you, Matt. Karen Reed's father, wasn't her car, didn't she go to his house and that's where it was retrieved, at his house, or was it retrieved at her house?
That's what I remember, is that it was moved to his house. And that's where that video is taken of it being loaded onto the flatbed, and then it goes over to the Sally port. And we've yet to hear any testimony of it being at the Sally port. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, when it's at his house, if he had an opportunity to look at the tail light and would be able to testify about what he saw or didn't see. I know it's a blizzard. We get back to the weather, right? It's a blizzard, so nobody wants to go outside. But I'm wondering if he has that knowledge, if he actually saw the tail light when the car was at his house before the state troopers took it over.
Well, you know, that's something that we're going to have to ask him. And you're coming to town, so you are going to see him face to face very soon.
All right, let's do that. All right. Matt Johnson in Dedham, thank you so much. All right. Let's bring in some of our trial insiders joining us. Trial attorney Wayne Dennison and Karen Reed supporter Nick Rocco. Nick, I want to talk about that security camera across the street. Do we know, so the image I just saw on our air, it looks like it's above the door. Am I correct that it's above the door? Do we know if it's wired for power or if it's one of those cameras where you have to get on a ladder and change the battery?
I'm not sure if it's battery operated or if it's wire operated, but that ultimately is irrelevant. I mean, you're talking about the deputy chief of police of Canton who has a camera on his house. He would want to see what's going on. Now, even if it didn't directly face the flagpole and say it faces the street, that would be just enough to show that Karen Reed had backed up, and whether it showed her hit John O'Keefe or not, it would still show the action of her backing up. And I've been saying this for a while now, Vinny. You know, this footage would put this case to rest. It happened or it didn't happen. And now we have to take the word of Gallagher that, oh, it only shows the yard and it only shows packages being picked up. So now, again, it's their word against what? Kelleher hasn't been on the stand yet, so he hasn't testified to this. But the fact that he didn't even go and ask for it is a huge problem. This happened right in front of what the Commonwealth says is the crime scene, and nobody asked for this footage. That's horrible. I mean, the jury, I think, when I was in there today, the jury definitely took notes when that was said. So, you know, ultimately it's up to them to think about this, but I don't think that was a good look for the Commonwealth today. Yeah, Wayne,
Wayne, could be classic, local police, sloppy investigation. We don't need it. It is what it is. We don't need to do the whole investigation. I've seen that in other cases on court TV. But in this particular case, under these circumstances, with the allegations that the defense is making, I think it's even more problematic because it could be interpreted as sloppy, which is bad, but it could also be interpreted as purposefully done, which makes it really bad.
Yeah, I guess you could claim that it was purposefully done, but there is no evidence at all as to what would have been viewed there other than the evidence we heard today as to the very limited amount of scope of the camera. And quite frankly, yeah, they didn't look for the camera. They didn't look at this particular camera.
But Wayne, every case I cover here at Court TV, when there's a crime, police track down every video. My goodness, they've got a video of Karen Reed driving through the middle of town. Why do they not want the video from the street and from the scene of the actual alleged murder? That's crazy. That's crazy, Wayne. They didn't even ask for it. They didn't even ask for it. You get every video possible to put your case together in a murder investigation?
Well, they didn't think it was a murder investigation from the first minute. And quite frankly, they didn't ask for it. And there's going to be evidence they didn't ask for it. And there's going to be a lot of argument about the fact they didn't ask for it. But what's the conclusion you're trying to draw here, Vinny? That they suppressed it on purpose?
Well, you can juries are allowed to make reasonable inferences from the evidence, right? If you pile this on top of what they're going to hear about Trooper Proctor, you've got a problem. That's the problem. They're investigating the death of a police officer. My goodness, and you're not getting a videotape from across the street? From across the street. And by the way,
from a car.
Right. By the way, you know, cameras have microphones on them too. If it's an Arlo like I have, I can hear everything. Do you think maybe we'd want to know if we could hear the impact of the car that might be on there? We didn't even check. That's the problem, Wayne.
Well, all of this is completely speculative. You're going to argue that it somehow points to either a bad investigation or some sort of misconduct. That's what the defense.
Well, I think we can agree it's a bad investigation. Can we agree across the board that if you're investigating a murder and there's a camera across the street from the murder and you don't even ask to see it or listen to it, that's a bad investigation? Can we agree on that?
I'll agree that it was an omission that shouldn't have occurred.
Yeah, I think Nick is on target on this one. I think it's a bad look, and it may very well just be sloppy investigation. It's snowing too much. We don't want to investigate this case because there's 20 inches of snow, but that's not a reason. That's an excuse, but not a good one. Here's the good news, though. Wayne Dennison, Nick Rocco staying with us. We're going to bring in the rest of our trial insiders and talk about the voicemails that Karen Reed left that night. Also, not a good look. Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan investigates what happened in the initial moments when John O'Keefe's body was found in the snow. What does the dash cam video reveal about the first responders? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Is Karen Reed a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was framed!
We know who did it.
The Karen Reed Murder Retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
At 12:36:40 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 12:37:08 a.m., the defendant calls John, and voicemail number 1 is left with voice.
So, after John O'Keefe gets out of Karen Reed's car, and whatever happens, happens, right? That's what the trial is about. Like, what happens once he steps out of the car? Is he run over by Karen Reed, or is he going in the house and get killed? It's one. It seems like it's one or the other, or maybe something in between, right? But it happens after he gets out of the car. Once that happens, there are a series of phone calls. I mean, a lot of phone calls from Karen Reed to John O'Keefe, and in some of them, she is leaving voicemails. And these are nasty voicemails, some of them. Let's take a listen.
John, I'm here with your kids. Nobody knows what the you want, you pervert. Yeah, it's 1 in the morning. I'm with your niece and nephew. You pervert. You're a pervert. John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are using me right now. You're another girl sleeping next to me. You're a loser. Yourself.
All right, these messages are being left just after she leaves and she gets back to John O'Keefe's home in Canton, you know, across town. So these are very close in time to when she allegedly murdered John O'Keefe. Let's bring back in our trial insiders, Wayne Dennison, criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr., Nick Rocco also with us. There's everybody. And on the phone, or is he on the phone? Yeah, on the phone, host and creator of Road Patrol Live, John DePietro. All right, thank you everyone for being here. Nick, let me ask you, and the question I asked off the top was, were they angry with one another once they separated from that car? Are these voicemails evidence that they were in a fight and that they were angry with one another?
I think it was more of John wanted to go there after Karen didn't want to go there. So ultimately, you know, when she's calling John, John's not answering the phone. She's getting mad. So unfortunately, when when a woman gets mad and her boyfriend's not answering, they get real mad. They start leaving voicemails. Now, if she had hit John O'Keefe, she's not going to call his cell phone 50 times and leave voicemails, basically incriminating herself by calling him all these names and using this, horrible language. Is she embarrassed by them? I'm sure she is, because they're being played for the world to hear. Those were obviously meant for John. She's leaving voicemails because she's being ignored, or at least she thought she was being ignored, so she got angry. Now, when you hear her very angry in these voicemails, and then hear her on the scene when she found John O'Keefe, that was raw and authentic emotion. She did not know John was there because she did not know John was laying outside in the snow. She assumed he went inside the house to the party. So she would not have left those horrible voicemails, considering the fact that if she had just hit him and he was dying outside, they would have been more lovey-dovey.
Okay, so, and I'm following what you're saying, that the anger is precipitated by the fact that John is not responding to her, not responding to whatever may have happened as he was leaving the car, that it's not necessarily a fight in the ride from the waterfall over to 34 Fairview, but the fact that he goes in and is now not responding to her calls. Okay, Joseph Krowski Jr., why would you murder someone and then call up and leave nasty voicemails? Like, I've covered the trial where someone murders someone and then calls the victim, but it's usually, oh, honey, I'm worried about you. Where are you? It's kind of like that. This isn't that. Why would someone do what Karen Reed is accused of doing if in fact, she's a murderer?
Look, this is all the hallmarks of a domestic violence situation. These are classic signs of alcohol rage syndrome combined with plausible deniability and cognitive dissonance. You have to remember, Karen Reed, there's evidence before this jury. This seems to be the way she communicated. Called him earlier 40 to 50 times. And when he doesn't answer within a minute, calls again, texts, answer. They had been sitting in that car, according to data from John's cell phone, for approximately 6 minutes, right? From 12:24 to 12:31:56. She leaves at 12:31:56 because she knows she hooks up to John's Wi-Fi at 12:36 and 39 seconds. Within a minute of leaving, she's calling him. Within 2 minutes of leaving, she's calling him again, calling him repetitively, and then it goes right in from 0 to 60 into that hate-filled, rage-filled voicemail that she began leaving him. So, look, can we say unequivocally we knew she hit him? Perhaps not, but she was in a state of rage. She was angry with him. She was incensed with him, and it's not a good look. In some of the content of the voicemails, she's saying, I'm here with your effing kids. The information I had is that the nephew wasn't even there. Also, there's a later voicemail she leaves 5:23 in the morning. John, was that you? Why would she be leaving that voicemail message? And as far as Nick's point that when she got there, that was raw, remember the video clip played today. We found him right in the general area where I left him.
Let's take a listen to more voicemails. We're going to listen to a couple of them here. Now, I want you to know that the second one is at 6:03 a.m., and it's Karen Reed's phone being left in the car while she goes and runs out of the car to find John O'Keefe. But what you'll hear is Jen McCabe calling 911, and you'll hear some other noises in the background. So let's take a listen to these two voicemails.
5:23:26 a.m. The defendant calls John. Voicemail number 7 is left with voice.
Miss Kilman.
6:03:02 a.m. The defendant calls John, and voicemail number 8 is left with some voice and noise and background.
Miss Kilman, could you play that, please?
Yes, I need someone to look at you. Very cool, beautiful, yes, ma'am. Your baby and top coat is small. Where's the blanket? I don't see blanket, Harry.
Now that message goes on much longer. We just played a piece of it because, again, it's hard to hear what's being said because it's not someone leaving a message. It's a phone that is recording a message that is left behind in the car. John DePietro, what are these voicemails proving from your perspective?
Vinny, I was in the courtroom today, and I want to tell you the jury was mortified and horrified as this all played out. It was very effective of Hank Brennan and having it play out throughout the entire night. Call number 1, number 2, 25, 30. And then at the very end, I found this very interesting. Vinny, everyone, they've seen Jen McCabe testify. They've seen Kerry Roberts. Everyone has seen the police dash cam. So as you're listening to that, everyone actually understands what they're listening to. And I think that this really helped Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts because they didn't embellish. You hear Karen in that crazy voice yelling their names. And although we can't see it, we can visualize them right there at the scene when they discovered John and came running out. So it was very intense. And Vinny, I also want to stress for people, in a small courtroom, and this thing is so loud, when the lights went on, I looked at the jurors, and it was just like, wow. It was one of those moments. It was so impactful. I thought today, in that sequence of events, I think it was a turning point in this trial.
We shall see. All right, our insiders are going to stay with us when we come back. An image of Karen Reed's taillight, like the best picture. Yeah, there's snow on the car, but what does this image prove? That's next.
It was a crack, and it was covered in snow.
Could you stop, please, Ms. Gilman? I note that the time is 8:23:10. Do you remember the time when you got there?
I didn't make note of it mentally at that time, but I've since learned that, yes.
Is this video that you have just watched consistent with your memory that morning?
Yes.
The cruiser cam is showing 2 vehicles in the driveway. When you arrived that morning, did you know whose vehicles they were?
At that time, no.
At that time, did you pay any particular attention to either of those vehicles?
No.
And could I have Exhibit 11, please? When you arrived for the wellness check that morning, were you working as an investigator in any way?
No, I was not.
Did you happen to pay any particular attention to the right side of the back of that car that morning?
No, I did not.
Okay, this could be the best video image of Karen Reed's SUV. This is at 8:23 in the morning, so it's after that previous night, but it's before the state police and Trooper Proctor take custody of the SUV. So let's put it up on the screen one more time for you. And compare the left taillight to the right taillight. Now, the right taillight, I do see white snow on it, and everyone talks about the white snow. Now, as we look at them, let's bring them together and make them a little bit larger here. So the question for the jury, the question for you at home looking at it, does the right side look like it is completely cracked or a small crack? Completely cracked or small cracked, or you can't tell because of the snow? Let's bring back in our insiders, Wayne Dennison, Joseph Krowski Jr., Nick Rocco, John DePietro. Wayne, what do you see in that image? What does it prove? What do you... Go ahead.
I don't think it proves much. I don't see much. It's just another piece of evidence that people can argue about and fight about. I don't think it's dispositive of anything, and you're only going to get the prosecution's view of this. Obviously, the prosecution thinks it's a helpful image, or they wouldn't have put it directly into evidence. I mean, ultimately, you're not going to hear Karen Reed explain the state of her taillight. The only testimony you're going to get from Karen Reed are from the various television interviews she did and the various voicemails she left. And neither of those are going to be flattering pictures. I don't think this particular picture does much for anybody.
John DePietro, I don't know if you can see what we were showing on the air. I know you're in court today.
Yeah.
Your thoughts about what we see in this comparison between the left tail light and the right tail light at 8:23 in the morning?
Vinny, what I thought was very effective is just that 10 days in, Hank Brennan has weaved a narrative that is very consistent, and that is that it happened 34 Fairview, outside by the flagpole, and we have witnesses of Karen Reed saying, I hit him, and now she's got the cracked tail light. I know.
But what level of cracking? I mean, the issue here, John, it's not just if it's cracked. There's a concession that it was cracked. But is it cracked a little bit, or is it completely cracked as it was depicted in the Sally Port later? Or was it just mildly cracked, like the defense is saying, because of Karen Reed in this video backing in to John O'Keefe's car?
I believe, I'm going to agree with Wayne, I think it's a wash, but just the takeaway is that the reason it's cracked is because she made contact with Officer John O'Keefe.
Okay. Nick Rocco, I want to play some testimony from Lieutenant O'Hare. This is interesting, but let's take a listen and we'll talk about it.
You had indicated to Lieutenant Tully at some point, close to 6 p.m. or so, it would be helpful if you and your team had a photograph of what it was you were looking for, correct?
Yeah, I believe after we found the first piece or two, I asked him if he had a photograph that we could look at just to see how large of an area, how large of a piece we were looking for, sir. Yes.
Right. So that would, just timing-wise, if you found the first piece at 5:45, first piece or two, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 minutes later, after that, maybe 5 minutes later. So let's place it at 5:50, close to 6. Something like that?
Yeah, probably between 5:45 and 5:50, possibly, sir.
And you said to him at the time it'd be helpful if we had a photograph of what it is we're looking for, correct?
Yeah, I said that would help, yes, sir.
And Lieutenant Tully told you that the vehicle did not have a photograph because it was still en route from Dayton being transported to Canada, right?
He did say he did not have a photograph and it was being towed back.
Okay, let me ask you, Nick, what is important about the timeline for the defense about possession of Karen Reed's SUV and the tail light?
Well, we know what time that the the vehicle arrived at the Canton PD, which was around 5:31 to 5:35. So if they found pieces of taillight at 5:45 and he asked for a picture at, say, around 5:50, the vehicle was down the street in the Sally Port. A photo could have been snapped and sent over to them so they know what they're looking for exactly. But the whole issue in this case is the only time we ever see her taillight is in the Ring video of her backing up. It shows her taillight intact. And then from the Dayton camera on her parents' house, it shows it going on the tow truck still intact. So there's not one picture that any police officer took of her vehicle to show the condition of her taillight, besides what we just saw in the driveway there, which again you really can't say because there is snow on it. You can still see the outline of the taillight, so you really can't say what condition it was. But again, it's also blurry. So one other thing I would like to point out too, because I was in the courtroom, I would just really like to say about everything that kind of came out today. The jury this time around is a lot different than the last jury. The last jury showed a lot of emotion. This jury shows almost no emotion at all. Not one jury, after those voicemails, after any of the testimony today, looked horrified. They were all stone-faced, as if they're just taking it in and not showing any expression. So I know we have a difference of opinion, but obviously they're one is horrified and one is stone-faced. But I've been watching them a lot, and I definitely think they're kind of keeping their calm on this one.
Well, if we have 5 witnesses that see the same thing, we're going to get 5 different versions of it, so that's understandable. Joseph Krowski Jr., The taillight, the images, the pictures. Has it been proven one way or the other in the courtroom about the status of that taillight before Trooper Proctor takes custody of it?
Absolutely. I would disagree strenuously with Nick. There is the depiction of that car at Meadows when she backed out and it leaves. The snow is pristine. There is no pieces of red taillight on the ground when she leaves, but you can clearly see a significant missing chunk of that taillight. That 823 video, if that taillight was merely cracked, it would not hold compacted snow the way it does as captured in that picture. Karen Reed, when she was interviewed, and the clip I believe has already been played, said that there was enough damage in the taillight where when she looked at it, she could look in and see the bulb, and she pulled pieces out of it. The CERT team, led by Lieutenant O'Hara, was at 34 Fairview by 4:54 and 4:56 when that car, Karen's car, had not even reached the Canton Police Department. You would have to believe all 6 members of the CERT team allowed Proctor or Higgins or Tully to come over and plant evidence right in front of their eyes. Other than that, you'd have to believe they became complicit in the conspiracy. I find it to be an awful big coincidence. The same morning that John O'Keefe is found where she believed he would be found, she's got a missing chunk of her taillight.
Now, I just want to clarify and understand what you're saying there. If we put the picture back up, if we can, of the taillight in the driveway at 823, what you're saying, Joseph, is that the snow is piling up because the taillight is missing?
Because there's a missing piece, contrary with the other side. If it's just a crack, it's polycarbonate, it's plastic. The snow's going to slide right down. Snow has been packed in. And remember also, there's video of Karen Reed and her father stopping, I believe, at Meadows or at his house, where they stop and they go and they look at the back of the car. They make it a point of emphasis. If it's a mere crack, it's not going to draw the attention it drew to William Reed.
All right, the music's playing. Wayne Dennison, Joseph Krowski Jr., Nick Rocco, and John DePietro, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon, and we'll see you next week up there. When we come back, something else you need to know, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, who were the first responders to arrive at the scene, and when did they hear Karen Reed's alleged confessions? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
You watched while your patient was lying there being tortured.
What else was I supposed to do?
So much for your career in caretaking.
Interview with a Killer, season finale, Sunday at 8 on Court TV.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Take a look at the big board. What do we have? Newlyweds. Oh, you recognize him. That's Alec Murdaugh's son, the one that's still alive that he didn't murder. Buster Murdaugh married his fiancée, who's now his wife, Brooklyn, in South Carolina on Saturday. He wore a classic white tuxedo jacket, black pants, and Brooklyn wore a traditional white wedding gown with a big bow on the back. And I hope he can move on. He lost his brother and his mother, and his father is the one responsible. Take a look at your screen, folks. We have a missing child who needs your help. Please take a look. This is Violet Rayne Koss-Sinnott. Violet is just 17, missing since April 22nd out of Glendale, Arizona. May still be in the local area, could be in Phoenix. Was last seen wearing a red wig. Please, if you see Violet, call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Glendale Police Department in Arizona. Let's see if we can get Violet to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.